Hey guys, Ryan here with 9 Day Marine with another Marine Training Academy video. In this video, I am here with my Hook Reveal 7, and I'm going to show you how to import and export all of your waypoints, routes, and trails, as well as settings files to and from your display. Now I'm also going to go through and show you how to use all of the different settings and options within inside the storage menu as well. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to need to do is you're going to press your Pages button right here to be able to bring up your Pages screen where you can go through and you can access which page you want to view. Now once you're there, we're just going to use the arrow buttons. We're going to arrow up and over and highlight where it says Storage, and then we're going to press our Enter button. Now this brings up our storage screen. Now if you were to put in an SD card into the little slot on the far right hand side right here, it'll bring up and it'll show you where it says memory card. Otherwise, this option will not show up on your screen if you don't have the memory card inserted. So with mine in there, if I arrow up to it, I have two options to be able to select it. I can either A, use my arrow buttons, like my right arrow button right here, and that way it'll drop it down and expand all of the files within inside that memory card. I can press my left arrow button to close that back up or collapse it. Or what you can also do is you can press your Enter button right here, which will give you the options to expand, give you the details. You can copy all the files or delete them all. So if we were to go to details, all that'll show us is how much free space we have available still on our card and how much is actually being used. So if we close that there, or if we press it and then we go and hit expand, it'll do the same thing as if we pressed our little right arrow button right here. So I prefer using the arrow buttons myself. Now, as you can see, I have some Genesis Live files that I have saved on here from whenever I was out on the water. I recorded my sonar log to create some kind of custom mapping. The Genesis Live feature is a really nice feature that these hook reveals have, so I definitely recommend using that to optimize the performance that you'll get out of your display. So let's go ahead and go down. So let's go ahead and let's go back up, and we're going to collapse that file. Now, if we go down here, you're going to see the My Files. Now that's going to be all of the files that you actually have physically saved internally in your display. Now if we press our right arrow button, it'll expand it, and you're going to see a bunch of folders that are going to drop down below it. The first one you're going to see here is your logs. Now what that's going to do is if we press our right arrow button, it's going to show us the different types of logs that we may have saved on here. So if I went in and I recorded a sonar log and saved it to the internal memory instead of the SD card, this is where you can go in and find it. You can also find it up here at the top where it says sonar logs. And now if we press our right arrow button, as you can see, it'll drop down and it'll show us that log file. We can go to it and press our Enter button and give us some different options for if we want to just be able to view that log, if we want to convert it, which is very similar to copy, which I'll show you here in just a minute whenever we go over the logs at the top here. We can also rename it, delete, or we can just close out of this option here. Now if we go down, you'll see where you have the manuals. Now this is actually the full manual for this display that's already saved in here as a PDF file. So we press our right arrow button and go down, we can see where it pops up and it shows us that manual. Now if I press Enter on here, it gives me the option to where I can either view, I can copy it, so if I want to copy that onto my SD card, or I can just close it out. Now I'm not going to go through viewing it because it is kind of slow to load up and to view all those. So if you want to go through and play with that, I recommend it. It's a really nice, neat little add-on that Lowrance gives us to be able to view our manual while we're out on the water instead of having to have that paper manual and risk it getting wet and ruined. So let's go ahead and close. Now we can also go down here where you see screenshots. This is where if you save a screenshot on your screen here, this is where you can actually go and view your screenshots if you've taken any. So if I press my right arrow button, you can go down and you can see how I've taken several screenshots from my display here. Now if I go to one and I press Enter, it pops up and it gives me the option that I can view it. I can set it as a wallpaper, which is going to be the background for whenever you press your Pages button. I can also copy it, rename it, delete it, or I can just close out of the screen. But for the sake of it, let's go over here. If we want to go to View, I can highlight that and press Enter. It pops up and now it shows me the screenshot I took at whatever previous point in time it was. Now whenever I'm done, I can just press my X button to exit out and it takes me right back here to my storage screen again. Now that's really it as far as the screenshot, so I'm going to collapse that file. Now you also have your updaters file. Now you're probably not going to use that on a hook reveal since this unit doesn't have Wi-Fi and you can't download updates to it wirelessly. You have to put them in through your SD card, so you're probably not ever going to use this, but if for some reason you do save an update file to it just manually, this is where you can find it. Now our next option here is going to be our wallpaper. Now like I mentioned before, you can set wallpaper to whatever you want, but it saves it to our actual Pages screen. So if we go back, I'm just going to press my Pages button here, and you see how I have this little kind of blue image of under the water back here. Now if I go in here, I go to my storage, let's go into my files, let's do the screenshots, and now if I go in here and I select this, I say set to wallpaper, which keep in mind you can do this with any image. So if you have some sort of picture that you've taken of a fish you caught, your family, whatever you want it to be, you can actually save that onto your SD card, put that into your display, and then you can go and it'll give you the option to set that as your wallpaper. So if I just press my enter button right here, it has now set that as my wallpaper. So now when I press my Pages button, you can now see that that is the background on my Pages screen right there. Now let's go back up, let's go to storage. Let's drop down my files, and let's go back down here. So that's really about it as far as the wallpaper goes. It's really easy to set up. I highly recommend doing that just to customize your unit. Just make it a little bit more personable, just kind of set to your style. Now, if we go down here, the last option listed here is going to be our settings database. Now, this is an important one because this is how we can back up and save all of the settings that we've set up on our display. So let's say, for example, you went through and you meticulously set up all of your settings and you want to make sure that you don't ever lose them. It's because, as you know, a lot of times these units have to be reset, or you may have to go through and play with some settings because you went out on a different body of water or something and change things. Well, you can go in here and we can back this up to our SD card or even internally, which I actually really recommend doing it to the SD card just in case something happens to your display. But once we save that, we can go in and we can import that right back into our display, and that way we don't lose all of those settings. So what we do is we highlight our settings database and we press our enter button, and now we can choose where we want to save that file to. Now I just recommend saving it to the memory card. So if we press our enter button, it gives us the option to either expand it. So if I wanted to save it to like a subfolder on the card, I could, or I can just go here and hit OK and press enter. And now it takes me to the screen where I can name that file. Now I'm just going to leave it as settings. And so with enter highlighted here, so if we press our arrow buttons, we can move that around and select, different letters, change what we want the word to be. And then we highlight enter and we press the enter button again. And now it shows that the export is complete. And now to check that file, if we arrow back up to the top here and we go to our memory card, we're going to press our right arrow button to expand that and then go all the way down to the bottom. And we're going to now see that file that we just saved, that settings.hset. Now, with older displays, or maybe you have older software on here, it may just show up as settings.set, which is perfectly fine. These units will work with either one, so either hset or just .set will work. Now, if we want to import those back into our display, so let's say we had to do a hard reset, or we took that card out and put it into another unit, and we want to be able to import those settings into it, we just go right here to this file, we press our enter button, and now we can arrow over here to where we can do import. Now, whenever we press our enter button, it's just going to import, and it's going to push in all of those settings that we had saved onto that file and set back up all the settings we had on there to how we had it saved within this file. Now you can also go in and you can copy it. So let's say if you wanted to, for some reason, just copy that file onto the internal memory, or if we wanted to rename it, we can. We can also delete it, or we can just go to close and we can exit back out of that screen. Now that's really about it for as far as all of the menu options down here on this main screen. But now you have these two options up here at the top, waypoints and sonar logs. Now the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our sonar logs. Now I went out and I recorded a little short log for just this demo purpose here for this video. So if you go to it and we press enter, it's going to give you a list of all of your sonar logs that you've ever recorded. Right now I only have one, and it's a pretty small file. It's only 1.7 megabytes, so it's only a few seconds long. But if I go in here and I press enter on it, it then gives me the option to either view, convert, copy, rename, or delete. Now if I go to view and I press enter, it's going to pop up and it's going to give me and if I click on view right here, it's going to bring me to that screen to where I can actually scroll over and I can scan through it. Now when I go to view and I press enter, what's going to do is it's going to bring me into the Sonar Log Viewer screen. Now in order to be able to play this, what we're going to do is we're going to press our enter button right here, which is going to access the menus on the right. And now I go down here to control and I press enter. And then I can go to play right here, where I can press enter again. And then it'll start playing and scroll across. However, because I only recorded it for a few seconds, it only scrolled across a little bit on the screen, so you can't actually physically see mine scrolling across on there. But if you had like a several minute long video, it would go ahead and play and it'll scroll through, and you can actually go through and you can play with some of your different sonar options. You can adjust your range, how much you want to see on there. You can set a new waypoint for that spot. We can go into and adjust our sensitivity and color line. Just gives us the option to go in and play and view that log that we recorded and maybe go back and find things that maybe we didn't see previously when we were out on the water. Now let's go ahead and exit back out of here. Now you have this option for convert. It's basically almost the same thing as copy, because when you select it, it gives us the option to be able to save it to a different location. So if I go in here, I can set it to internal, or I can set it to memory card, which is the same thing that copy does, but the only difference here is that we can also go in and set it to high resolution. So if I set it to high resolution, it's just going to convert that file and make it a little bit more crisp, a little bit brighter, a little bit clearer. Now I can go down here and cancel just to exit out, or if I wanted to follow through and actually convert it, I could arrow over here to convert, and I could press my enter button. Now I'm just going to hit the X to exit back out. Now, as I mentioned before, we can also copy, which is just going to give us the option to copy it to a different location. We can rename it, and we can also delete it. Now I'm going to go ahead and just close for now, and then we're going to exit back out. Now the last thing here is going to be our waypoints. So if you highlight this little waypoint flag right there, and we press enter, it's going to bring up our waypoints, routes, and trails screen here. Now, as you can see, you have some different choices here. This is where we can export. So if we go over here, we can export all of our waypoints, routes, and trails files on here. So if I press the enter button, it then gives us an option for file format. Now, I highly recommend to choose the highest version that it gives you. So right now it's giving me version 6, but with that highlighted, if I press enter, I can now arrow down and scroll through some different user data file versions. Now the different versions change how much information is actually saved with this file. So if I set it to version 6, it's going to save everything. That's including the icon, any kind of notes I've put onto it, the depth, distances, the water temperature, just everything that's that could be saved with your waypoint, it's going to save it on there. Now as you go down through here, it's actually going to reduce the amount of information that is saved with that file. Now I know that version 4 will only, now I know that things like say version 4, 3.2, or GPX are going to be used for older units. So let's say you're going to save this waypoint file to a card to share with somebody. Who may have an older display, like maybe they have an old Elite or an old original kind of an HGS Gen 1 or Gen 2 unit. Well, those units software can't support the higher or newer file versions, and so if you want to be able to share that with them, you'll have to go down here and save it as a lower version. Now version 2 is really going to be designated for the legacy units like the old LMS or LCX displays, or all the way down here for your GPX, this is going to be a raw bare bones file. Now this is best used if when you do save this file and you try to import it into another unit and you get some sort of an error message saying it's got some sort of a corrupted data, corrupted file. If that ever happens, you can go in here, you can select the GPS exchange option and then save it as that, and that will kind of remove any of those corrupted files or corrupted waypoints that you may have saved in there inadvertently. And so that way it'll kind of fix that. But again, it won't share all of the information with it. Like I said, the depth, your GPS location and stuff like that. It's just going to be a bare bones file. But being able to have that is better than nothing at all. So for the sake of it, we're going to go up here and we're going to choose user data file version 6. We're going to press enter. Now we go down here, we're going to highlight export. Now we're going to highlight export and we're going to press our enter button. Now this gives us the option like before, asking us where we want to save it to. I highly recommend saving it to your memory card. So if we just press enter, arrow down to OK, and press enter again. Now it gives us the option to be able to rename that file. Now I'm just going to leave it as waypoints, routes, and trails for this video, but you could go through and delete that name and name it anything that you want. Now if we press our enter button, all right, it has now saved that file. Now if we press our X button, we arrow down here to memory card. We're going to press our right arrow button, and then we're going to scroll down here, and now you can see we have our waypoints, routes, and trails.usr waypoint file. So it's always good to make sure to go in and double check to make sure that it has actually saved to your card. But as long as you see that file there, then that means that you are good. Now, if you want to be able to load or import those files back into this unit, or really any unit for that matter, we can just arrow down and highlight it like we've done. We can press our enter button, and then we can arrow over and we can hit import right there. And what that'll do is that'll just import all of those waypoints, routes, and trails saved onto that file directly back into your display. So it's a nice little feature on there. I highly recommend doing this fairly regularly. I can't tell you how many times people that I've spoken with told me how something happened with their unit. They've been saving waypoints and routes and trails for years, and then for whatever the case, the unit froze up and then they lost all of it. So if you have to hard reset your unit or this unit just glitches, there's generally no way to get those files back off there. So it is always very important to back them up to an SD card. So let's go ahead and we're going to hit X to exit back out of here. Now let's go back up to the waypoints here. Now, like I showed you before, we have the export. Now we can also export a particular region. So let's say you have a lot of waypoints saved on various bodies of water, and your buddy says, hey, give me the waypoints for XYZ lake. Well, you can go in, instead of having to give them all of your waypoints, you can go through and you can manually select just a specific area and then back up and save those waypoints only to the card. And so by doing that, we could just select export region and press our enter button. And now you see how we have this little box right here? What we can do is, see how it lists up in the here where it says grab corner? So we can press the enter button right there, and then we can move this around to wherever we want it to be. And then when we're done, we press our enter button again, and then we'll move our crosshairs to the other corner. We put it right there where it says grab corner. We press our enter button, and now we can move this box to whatever size we want. When we're done, we'll press enter so it's locked into place. And now it shows you up in the top left-hand corner here, it says finish. So if we hit X, it's going to ask us, are we sure we want to export this region? We'll say yes by pressing enter. And now it's going to go through the same process where we can choose our data file version. We can hit export. We can choose where we want to save it to. So let's say memory card. And then what it's actually see here is that where it shows, now what you see here is it shows new or waypoints, routes, trails.usr. So what it's asking us is if we want to create a new waypoint file or if we want to overwrite our existing waypoint file we already had saved on there. Well, chances are you're probably not going to want to overwrite it, so we're going to select new. We're going to press enter, and now we can save a new file. So we can go in, we can rename it to whatever we want. Once it's done, we're going to have enter highlighted there. We're going to press our enter button. And now it's saved that file. So what we're going to do is we're going to press our pages button again. We're going to go back up to storage. Let's highlight memory card, expand. Now when we scroll down to the bottom, we now have both of those waypoint files that we just created. So it's good to see that it has been backed up and it is successfully saved. So let's go back up here to waypoints. And then the other options we have here is where we can delete all, which that's going to go through and it's just going to delete all of our waypoints, routes, and trails off the display. And then you have this other option here that says purge. Now for the hook reveal, the purge feature doesn't really have much functionality to it. All it's going to do is it's going to remove or delete all of our kind of stored, already previously deleted waypoints, routes, and trails. So I've gone through, if I had deleted a lot of them previously, you'll see them listed there, and it just kind of saves a very little, tiny little bit of it onto here. So if you want to just clear all your memory, you can go through and you can hit purge and it'll remove them. Now, if you had another display like the Elite FS or one of the HDS Lives that have actual networking capabilities, that purge function actually has a completely different usage to it. It has to do with if you have, say, 2 units networked together and 1 unit is turned off and you go through and you delete all the waypoints, whether or not you purge this file here is going to dictate whether or not when you turn the other unit back on, if it's going to transfer all those waypoints from the other unit back onto this display, or if it's going to tell the other unit to delete its files as well. So that's the whole point of the purge option. But like I said, on this display, this does not have networking, so it's not going to really have much functionality or usage for this display. So let's just go over here and hit close and go back. So that's really going to be about it as far as our storage screen. So hopefully you guys have a good understanding of how to use this, how we can back up and utilize all of our waypoints, routes, and trails, as well as our settings files. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel. I've always got new videos coming out. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay safe out there, guys.